Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you. You're watching a brand new episode of Encounter. Today, our guest has come all the way from Australia. She's a professional in the education sector. She started all the way down as an educator, as a professor, and walked slowly but surely her way up until the higher studies sector. Our guest is none other than Diane Fleming. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be part of the Encounter program.
Oh, thank you very much. And can I call you D or Di? D.
I'm happy. Please call me D, because
okay.
Everybody in Mauritius calls me D, so I feel at home.
So D, today you will be introducing a fairly new concept in Mauritius, especially in the education sector, which you call the Global Curriculum Orbit, or in abbreviation it's GCO. Yeah. So can you please explain a little bit more, quite broadly, what is the term and what it means?
The Global Curriculum Orbit is a program that's been designed for people of all ages, but our pilot and our research has focused on students in secondary schools. And the whole idea of the orbit is to give students the opportunity to think about and act on global issues. We've taken the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and they are at the heart of it. And what's different for the GCO is that we are challenging students to choose 3 of these orbits, to look at the collision between them, to identify a wicked problem, and to come up with a solution.
So you mentioned the 17 SDGs. Do you also have a target till the year 2030?
Our target for 2030 is to make sure that this curriculum is available for students across the world. Traditionally, many of our students are studying about the SDGs. They're not actually getting inside the SDGs and understanding the relationship of one to another. We want students to be able to not only understand the characteristics of the SDGs and what they mean for the world, we want them to then become the leaders through being the solution finders to some of these problems.
You mentioned earlier that it's focused for students of the secondary. Why not primary or higher studies?
The program is for students of all ages, and I'm absolutely confident. I have grandchildren, and I've already been talking to young children about some of these issues. So yes, primary school education and primary schooling in terms of a launching pad for the GCO is absolutely appropriate, because little children understand at the most fundamental levels what's happening. They understand about COVID. They understand climate change. They understand the need for recycling. They understand, in most cases, that mummy and daddy are concerned about the world, and they're talking about it. It's on the agenda at family level and at government level and at corporate level.
Oh, that sounds very nice. So we're all in the theory aspect of it, but let's now get deeper into the topic. What is so different about what you're introducing in Mauritius? That's one of the reasons why you have come to Mauritius at the end of the day, right?
Yes, it is. There are a number of elements to the GCO. We're working with students to show them, encourage them how to be entrepreneurial and entrepreneurs in their thinking. We're working with students so that they can explore their imagination. We're working with students in teams. So often when you walk into a classroom, all of the desks are in rows, the students are facing the front. What we want to do is to get the students to face each other and to work in teams, because this is how life actually works. That's what partnerships are all about. So I guess the unique elements in terms of this program is that the students, in working in their teams, are able to identify, argue, what is the issue we want to work on. And as they're working on it, then they go from having an idea, giving that idea shape and form, so that's about design, and then ultimately it may well be an innovation, but we've gone further. When you look at the solutions of the SDGs, quite often solutions require government funding.
Yes.
And so often the solution requires, and I'm going to be quite bold about it, people want a handout. But what we want to educate children in and for is for them to be commercially minded. So you have an idea, you see the issue, you come up with a solution, but then is the solution viable commercially? So we're encouraging young people, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old, to be able to find a solution that could become their business in the future. If you think of the obvious examples, so many tech companies started in a garage. We want a lot of these companies to start in the classroom, in the back gardens, in the groups of students working over the phone and online, solving problems together.
That's one of the reasons why you're in Mauritius, and
Yes.
you're also working with the Ministry of Education and the private sector. How is that coming along?
It's been wonderful. So in April this year, I met with the Honourable Vice Prime Minister and our Minister for Education and Tertiary Education. And in that meeting, there are a number of players, and we had already presented the proposal and we received her imprimatur. We went from that meeting with the Minister, and I met with the Managing Director of Ceridian and the Managing Director of SD Works. Both Ashwin Pudarath and Vidya Munigan, I've pronounced his name incorrectly, I do apologise. Both of these leaders of these global companies, after 5 minutes of explanation, said yes to the program. And in saying yes, one of the motivations for both of them was the fact that they immediately offered, well, let's not run this program in the school. Let's invite the students to come to our corporations and immerse them into a world that may well be their aspiration, and through this experience, become their aspiration for the future. We want to show them how the world works. And I think immediately...
It has been well received,
yes.
in a way.
So the partnership was corporate. The partnership was also with the ministry and, of course, with GCO. And, of course, partnership is the 17th SDG.
I can't wait to hear what were the 5 minutes that you presented that they said, yes, let's try it. But I'm sure you'll tell us about it after the short break. We'll have a look at the following report, where we'll speak a bit more about the global curriculum orbit. Don't go away. We'll be back shortly. The Global Curriculum Orbit, GCO, has been designed for students to think about, imagine, create and work collaboratively to find solutions to shared and relevant global agendas. The GCO will align, focus and bring together reality in a virtual place where students will challenge the status quo, build resiliency and mobilize each other to take shared action across nations while maximizing diversity and differences. At the global level, this initiative strengthens and enhances the strategic management of ideas through the intersection, integration and interaction of social progress and development through the SDGs. Through the Global Curriculum Orbit, children will show that innovation and resiliency are building blocks to accelerate sustainable impact and to strategically manage the turbulence and complexity of our world, their world. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You're still watching Encounter, and Dee is still with us in the studio, and she's speaking about the Global Curriculum Orbit. You mentioned before the break, before the report, that you had a meeting with the representatives of the private sector, and within 5 minutes they were convinced. I want to know, what did you share with them? I shared an image with them in the first instance, and it was an image that was a software platform. And on the left-hand side, imagine spaghetti. Okay. Imagine an environment of chaos and almost of anarchy, where you could imagine people coming and going and meeting and talking and bumping into each other. And then out of that chaos, that spaghetti, there were numbers,
coming towards us on the screen, and those numbers represented student projects, or indeed the ideas, the discussions that was being had in that collision of discussion. And then on the outside of this image, there were replications or representations of little characters, and they were the corporate sector.
Okay.
And they were observers. So you had discussion, in this case, with students talking about the future and their ideas and their wonder about the world. Then the articulation into examples of projects coming to you.
Okay.
And they were projects about sustainability, projects about the real concern about life in our seas, etc. And then why the corporation on the outside? This was an opportunity for corporates, the private sector, to look at the ideas and the projects that students were building now and asking the question, do these projects have legs for the future? What can we as corporations do in working in partnership with these students to build their ideas to actually enhance the economic development and future of our country, of the world?
All right, allow me to ask you this question then. Let's say I'm a 15-year-old student
Yes.
studying in a secondary institution. Give me an example so that I can get the essence of what we're getting into.
A group of students started to think about real estate. So they were in a helicopter. They were looking down over the world. In fact, they were looking down over Aben. And they were arguing that every building had taken up a footprint,
Yeah.
but every building had a rooftop. And so they then started to create biospheres on the rooftops and in extensions, architectural extensions of some of the buildings. So all of a sudden, they are engaged in building a biosphere, recycling of water, creating an environment of well-being for employees, creating a space where visitors could come and share their ideas. They were places of wonder, of engagement, but also utilising the space in a really powerful and yet sometimes very quiet way. That was just one idea. We had students, one of the wicked problems was the issue that Mauritius is facing in terms of its water. And a group of students then created an entire water catchment, and it was like a desalination plant.
Right.
So if in fact they built that, it would help the future of Mauritius not to be reliant on rainwater.
You mentioned wicked problems.
Yes.
So these are part of if solving the wicked problems will help tackle the SDGs. I wouldn't say tackle, but comply with the SDGs?
Totally. The wicked problem comes from the fusion of a number of SDGs. So if you took sustainable cities and partnership, overlap that, and then look at the agenda of climate change, what are the commonalities between sustainable cities, partnership, and climate change? And when the students started to unpack each of those three SDGs and ask the question, what do we have in common? Then we had a Venn diagram, and the bullseye became the wicked problem that emerged from it. So sometimes the wicked problem could be the issue of security. And security is absolutely central and key to every SDG that you would mention, from poverty to equality, etc.
It's all interrelated at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
In the two examples you gave earlier, you mentioned about going on the rooftop and visualizing a biosphere,
Yes.
or also a solution to the water problem.
Yes.
So is it the reason why you mention viable solutions, so that even if you develop it and invest in it, it's a win-win situation where you end up spending less money, but also that's the point that I want to make. You become more responsible towards yourself, towards society, and towards Earth. Is that the direction that you think you're heading?
Yes.
Why is that so important for you to head in that direction?
When you're talking with groups of people and you are challenging them to find solutions, it's not unusual for the person here to say, oh, but they won't let us, or the person here to say, oh, that wouldn't be possible. By working with young people, they've not been immersed in a world where they are limited by regulatory requirement. They are not in a world where their imagination is limited by they won't let us or you're not allowed to go there. By having the freedom to be able to think globally and act locally, to understand absolutely that our planet is in danger, to understand that whilst climate change, it could be a political football, and it is, our students now through this program can take responsibility, and they know their voices is going to be heard, because when the GCO projects are complete, it will be uploaded up onto our platform. These projects ultimately are going to be available for students, corporations, governments to be able to see globally. These are not going to be just kept and retained by our Honourable Vice Prime Minister. These projects will be made available for everybody to buy in and to look at and to continue to upload.
Again, another question I have to ask you. You've come from Australia. Why
Yes.
Mauritius with just a tiny dot on the world map?
I think Mauritius is an extraordinary country with huge real estate, air, sea and land. I mean, already Africa is heavily engaged in space commerciality. So when I come to Mauritius and I see its geographic location within the Indian Ocean and I look at its transformational agenda, I believe that Mauritius is absolutely a launching pad into continental Africa. It's already a focus globally with India. I'm also the Honorary Consul for Mauritius in Victoria in Australia. I have a great heart for Mauritius and the 30,000 Mauritians that we have in our country and in our state. Mauritius has got so much potential, and I've worked in Mauritius with students on other projects, and I've found the student buy-in, their creativity, their passionate commitment to finish something. That was one of the reasons I wanted to work with students from Mauritius because I trusted that they would provide fantastic examples for other students globally, and they have, and they did on Friday night at the showcase.
You're already heavily vested over the African continent with the global curriculum orbit. So can you share a bit about this? Because then it will lead me to my next question also.
I've been working across the African continent now for about 16 years. I've been running the African Children's Stories program for the Jusseur Foundation. And as well as that, I was the founding president of the Australia-Africa Chamber of Commerce. So my engagement across Africa has been rich, from a regional basis across South Africa, Ethiopia, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Nigeria. And then in Mauritius, coming back to Mauritius all the time as that launching pad. I've had the privilege of having, people like Ken Punasami coming to Melbourne, delivering and leading financial agendas. So I'm passionate about the leaders here as well, and some of the people that I've been working with. Some of your leaders, I look at both Ceridian, SD Works, I look at the EDB, and I trust these leaders, and I believe that they trust me and our team as well. Therefore, we can go to our students in a partnership way through a trust filter. And that means when we work on the African continent, we know equally that we're trusted in the way in which we deliver.
So if I want to have more information about the global curriculum orbit, I just Google it and I'll find
Yes, you will. It will take you to our New Impact Foundation. And as well as that, I'd be very happy to receive any responses in terms of email communication.
Sure.
So if I can share that.
Sure, go for
so
it.
my email is di.fleming, FLEMING, @akt.net.au. And I'd be delighted to share information and talk to those who are interested.
Oh, fantastic. I mentioned earlier the previous question leads me nicely to the next one. So probably this one is the most important one.
Okay.
How did you come up with the program, and why is it so important for you to share it with everyone? I'm guessing it's got a lot to do with your experience and the career you've had.
It's like an encapsulation of my educational philosophy, my personal philosophy, and my relationship with Kelly Culver, who is also the director and the co-founder of the Global Curriculum Orbit. I met her in Mauritius, and again, within probably 5 minutes, we made a commitment to each other. We had so much in common that we were going to do something together. So the encapsulation really comes back to imagination. So when I was studying my thesis, I was at Simon Fraser University in Canada, and my professor, the late Professor Kieran Egan, his focus was imagination, and from that time forward, imagination has been at the centre of who I am and what I believe in, and my hope and my faith in children for the future. If we can give students their head, if we can give them the opportunity to be engaged in the decision-making for the future of their planet, I believe we will have done something more than worthwhile. I believe that we will give our students a very strong sense of well-being, of leadership and of confidence, and not being at the behest of people who I don't think are giving us the right moral leadership for the future, because it's not a political football. This is their future.
You almost answered my next question. So where have we been going wrong then?
I believe that we need globally, if I had my dream, if my dream came true, I would like to transcend national governments, and I would like to see the creation over time of a global parliament. And that global parliament represent really the SDGs. What are the key issues that we are facing? And then come together to solve the problem for all, not solve the problems for some. Clearly, we need to listen to our scientists, and we need to make sure that we take seriously the fact that we as human beings are accelerating the climate change and the impacts that we are all experiencing every day, particularly in this little island with a huge real estate and a huge heart.
So at the moment, I guess the solution is country by country, state by state.
We're trying to work in parallel. We will, as we go along, bring together leaders of those countries that we're working in. And you might think this is going to, look at the colour of your hair, Diane Fleming, this is going to go beyond your time. Yes, it will. But I believe the students will bring us together through their schools and through their professional links. But we will be bringing the leaders of the countries that we're working in together as well.
All right. We have almost come to the end of this interview. We have just a few minutes. Anything you would like to add before we conclude?
Here in Mauritius, with the work of the ministry, working at SD Works, working in the innovation lab that was jointly opened by the University of Mauritius and Ceridian, it's been extraordinary. We've learned a great deal. We didn't get everything right. I mean, I know from a personal level, there's still a lot to be learnt about the way in which we prepare students, the way in which we use our technology. We still don't have an appropriate integrated platform to be able to upload the student projects. But the joy, when we finished the showcase on Friday night, we had 16-year-old boys hugging each other, hugging us, so grateful. They had an opportunity to be involved in an education program that was unusual, that was out of the ordinary, that challenged them, where in fact they weren't resentful that they were on school holidays and we'd taken up their time. No, they learnt a lot and they were passionate. My only sadness is that we only were able to give our students 7 minutes, and their time on the podium and perhaps Encounter could invite some of the students to present their projects to the rest of Mauritius and the world. That would make me a very happy woman. So
Well,
thank you.
To many more encounters to come then.
Yes,
Hopefully.
please.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of this episode of Encounter. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. If you have any queries or questions on the guest or on the topic that was discussed, drop an email. It is encounter@mbc.itnet.mu. Until the very next program, goodbye.